Kamya, बहुत दिन हो गया दिख रहे नहीं, which came in Times of India, the article. And then when my dad lost his job in Hyderabad, all hell broke loose. So how did I become this angry young boy? I was this close to just ending my life. And in fact, ये पूरा story मैंने एक किताब लिखा है. It's called I Will Survive, and you mentioned that in your podcast, which became a bestseller.
So Sunil, जैसे आपने कहा कि like you attempted suicide once, but what was really happening in your mind at that point of time कि आपको इतना dire step लेने का मन किया?
In South India में if people have my complexion, you are picked for your complexion. मेरे friends मेरे को alter करके बुलाते थे. Alter meaning तेरे कपड़े alter करके पहन रहे ना. So but I started hating him with a very visceral gut level anger कि आपकी वजह से go and stand in front of a train. But there were some people who also thought this guy has potential. Someday, champions are merely exposed there. एक beautiful dish बना के अपने सामने अपने टेबल के पास लेके आता है. In the harsh realities of adversity जो है, अपना character बनती है, अपना mental strength.
Pain is something that is going to make you stronger. कि जब तक बच्चे को स्विमिंग पूल में ना ढकेलो तब तक वो स्विमिंग नहीं सीखता.
The second part was I really need to rebuild my relationship with my father. I actually won 4 out of the 5 gold medals and I was doing radio jockeying in that place. I wrote for Encyclopedia Britannica. In India, we leave a lot of things unresolved with our parents. करोड़ों पैसे देने से भी इतना
mend the bonds.
So stories are always about people. You can't have, where do all the people gather around? There'll be one storyteller. I'm actually blessed. I work for TCS, right? Teaching people inside the prison is something I love to do. I always treat adversity as an opportunity. Take responsibility for your health, fitness. We were involved in a car accident. If I want to write some words on my tomb.
कई बार हमारे लाइफ में ऐसे मोड आ जाते हैं जहाँ पर बहुत सारी चीजें हमें बस गिव अप करने का मन करता है. We are just so very frustrated and depressed. पर ये जो सिचुएशंस होती है ये बहुत ही चैलेंजिंग सिचुएशंस होती है और यही वो सिचुएशंस है जो हमारे कैरेक्टर को हेल्प करते हैं उसे स्ट्रेंथ देने के लिए, उसे रेजिलियंस देने के लिए. ऐसी ही एक कहानी आज मैं अपने पॉडकास्ट में लेकर आ रही हूँ. A story about a storyteller, a person from a leadership team who once thought of giving up on his life. So let us hear Sunil Roberts' story on his life, his inspiration, his aspirations. उन्होंने कैसे overcome किया अपने challenges को, and right now he is on top position on one of the most reputed organizations in India. So without any further delay, let's go ahead. Hey, hi Sunil, how are you?
Thank you. Welcome to this podcast. Thank you for having me, Namita. It was great meeting you on LinkedIn, and it's such a pleasure to be on your show.
Pleasure's all mine, Sunil. Pleasure's all mine. In fact, यहाँ पर अपने viewers को मैं ये बताना चाहती हूँ कि सुनील इंडिया में नहीं है, वो एक्चुअली यूएसए में है. यहाँ पर हमारा काफी टाइम डिफरेंस है, पर उन्होंने आज टाइम निकाला है to share his inspiring story. Do make use of this podcast and you are going to love it. Thanks a lot Sunil once again क्योंकि हमारे बहुत सारे discussions में finally we were able to connect. But I'm so glad कि आपने मेरा invite accept किया. And having said that, I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel and to my podcast, to my world of audience.
Namaste viewers of Namita show. जैसा ये कह रही थी, I live in the US, but LinkedIn में हमारी मुलाकात हुई, and basically it was through an accidental piece that I shared on LinkedIn, which came in Times of India, the article, and that's the, you never know when you share something on social media. जैसे आप देख रहे हैं in Namita's inspiring podcast, one connection leads to another, and you never know what happens. And so this is a great example of how when a chance meeting on LinkedIn is resulting in a hopefully an inspiring conversation with Namita ji.
Wonderfully said. And by the way, viewers, जैसे कि मैंने brief में कहा है, Sunil is a storyteller. So you are going to have more fun today. So Sunil, I have already briefed to my audience, to my viewers, एक आपके बारे में brief background दे दिया है, पर मैं चाहती हूँ कि आप भी आपके बारे में कुछ बताइए.
Super. My hometown is Hyderabad, and occasionally I'll be lapsing into Hyderabadi Hindi. तो पहले से क्षमा चाहता हूँ. क्योंकि हैदराबादी जब हैदराबादी हिंदी बात करते हैं पूरा दुनिया को एक अम्यूजमेंट के जैसा हो जाता है, लेकिन हैदराबादी को तो नेचुरल है वो. इनफैक्ट वन ऑफ माय फेवरेट types of party activities, or when you talk to Hyderabadi friends, is starting off with क्या मिया बहुत दिन हो गया दिख रहे नहीं. So it's a very natural relapse into Hindi. So occasionally I'll probably be telling you stories from Hyderabad, but essentially I was born and raised in Hyderabad. My parents were actually from a village about 60-70 kilometers from Hyderabad. They both moved to the big city in search of opportunities, in search of jobs. Not very highly educated. My mom was actually a nurse, an A&M they say, and she did not get any opportunities because all her life she was a homemaker. And then when my dad lost his job in Hyderabad, all hell broke loose. So mera kahani ka shuruat it happens there. So what do you do when you're in a big city with 4 kids, no job, no home to stay? And into that context my story begins. I usually take a lot of time to set up how I struggled without food, without clothes, without the money to pay to go to school, because when my dad was doing well, we were going to an English medium convent type of school, and when income stopped, there was no way we would continue our studies and so on. So a lot of struggles during my early years, say from the time of 12 all the way up till 21, 22, a 10-year period in which my life was nothing but hell. Kafi suffering tha. I mean, how do you survive, right? And there were only 2 options for my parents. Either they separate and my mom goes back to her father and just be a liability in those days they used to look at, and on her dad and her own brother, or stay together and just survive every day, just one day, one meal, one night at a time. So it's a long, painful story, at least from my mother's vantage point, because she saw me as an oldest boy with a lot of promise. I had a lot of potential, but what do you do when you're a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old, right? So my actual grueling story started when I turned into a teenager, started going to a polytechnic. I did reasonably well in my 10th grade. But India mein 10th grade, what do you get, right? It's not like America. You can work in a gas station or you can work in a Walmart. Kuch kar sakte. There you have basically zero opportunities. At least now in the last 20 years, since the Y2K and all that, after the BPO center came, even if you speak good English and you have a graduate degree or intermediate PU 10+2, there are some call centers who might hire you just to take calls and stuff. But in my earlier days, in the 90s, we didn't have those opportunities.
Right.
So it's a very economically impoverished condition mein I grew up. And then what happened in that 10 years? The emotional ups and downs, the intellectual questions, the pain, the relational struggles inside the family and outside. How did I become this angry young boy and started showing my anger outward or anger inward, which is essentially depression and just hitting a low point emotionally? That's the story of my life. Those 10 years, mein jitna suffering experience kiye as a family, we were this close to just falling apart as a family. I was this close to just ending my life, or I was this close to going into becoming a rowdy cheater and a bad boy. I mean, my story could have gone anywhere else, but for the grace of God, Namita. जैसे कहते हैं ना, इंडिया में we all believe in a divine force. We all believe in a maker in heaven. And thanks be to God, my story turned around all right. And in fact, ये पूरा story मैंने एक किताब लिखा है. It's called I Will Survive, and you mentioned that in your podcast, which became a bestseller. And the reason it's become a bestseller is not because of my writing ability, but because that story sub connect kiya hai. Because this is my average story. Every story, 90%, 80% of Indian stories are those, if not your story, it could be your dad's or your, parents' story. Somebody somewhere did the hard work for us to set the platform ki next generation aur acha kare, So I'll pause here and just let you soak in this introduction.
So very touching, Sunil. So Sunil, जैसे आपने कहा कि like you attempted suicide once, but what was really happening in your mind at that point of time कि आपको इतना dire step लेने का मन किया?
2-3 things really happened at a wrong time for me. The first one was this whole hopeless situation of not knowing where the next meal is coming, and just waiting there helplessly for my dad to just do something and earn some money, or my mom to do something, earn some money, taki we have some rice and dal or some such simple meal.
How old were you
that
at
was
that
one
time?
frustrating thing.
How old
The
were you at
first
that time?
trouble started when I was about 12, and it
Oh.
continued all the way till 18 19 se I started going to work and stuff. So in that 7-year window, kafi tough times the, and we were 4 of us. I have 2 sisters and a brother, and I was the oldest. So I was literally like the first one who could understand ki kya ho raha hai hamare. See, if you're born into poverty all along, na, you know ki this is my life here. This is what we were born into, and this. But my dad had a good job, so to some degree we had some comforts. We had some good clothes. We had a decent home before, right? So from there we fell. So
Right.
that it hurt us. वो दर्द काफी inexplainable था. Then what happened is, that was the first part. This physical suffering of hunger, very very compelling pain. The second one was, during those times, a lot of emotional upheavals happened in my mind. Teenagers go through this maturing process, and in that time, you start being bullied and made fun of. In South India, if people have my complexion, you're picked for your complexion.
Oh.
Khaliya karke bulate the mere, some of my friends. And then, because I used to wear clothes that were ill-fitting, mere friends mere ko alter karke bulate the. Alter meaning, tere kapde alter karke pehen rahe na. So, अरे alter aa raha hai, अरे alter cricket खेलता क्या हमारे साथ. That was how I was referred to. So that bullying and that emotional. See, when you're going through a low phase, any small joke also can see like an exaggerated insult.
Agree.
So that emotional thing started happening. And then as a teenage, once I came into my teenage, 15, 16, 17, the struggles that you have with the opposite gender, rejections, you're not seen as, welcome, you're seen as, avoid karo ise. Some of that relational dynamics started affecting me. So these 3-4 factors put together put me to a very lonely phase. In fact, jab main polytechnic pad raha tha, I got involved in student politics. I supported one political party, and in that particular time, I got into beating up others and getting beaten up by others, gang fights, election campaigning mein nikal padte the hum loga. We used to take money from political parties to campaign for them. All this nonsense we used to do. And in that disturbing set of circumstances, I really had hit a low point with my dad. There was a big struggle I had with my dad. Mera jo relationship tha with my dad was not the best during those years. In fact, I'll tell you how I resolved it as we share as the story further unfolds. But I started hating him with a very visceral, gut level anger. कि आपकी वजह से मम्मी is going through so much. आपकी वजह से हम चार इतना तड़प रहे. That anger really pushed me over the edge. And one of these days I felt, this is not working out for me. I'll just go and... So I was about to, go and stand in front of a train. But a few students in that area, engineering college in Hyderabad area, they kind of stopped me and just brought me back to my house. And they were like these few younger boys, slightly older than me. So they said, nahi yaar, aisa mat karo. Life will turn around. Hang in there. And somehow those young boys trying to share some stories really drilled some sense into me. And then shortly after that, I went to a youth camp. My best friend actually and we went to a youth camp organized by this YMCA-like organization. Wahan pe mera turning point aaya tha. People said, these difficulties are temporary, but how you overcome will set you up for the future. That, in fact, those who have faith, those who have this faith that God created you, those who have faith that God's story is at work in you, will achieve great things.
Wow.
मेरे को अच्छा लगा कि ऐसे there is hope for me. I'll achieve great things someday. And that promise people started looking at me for who I was. कि इसके पास कुछ भी नहीं है अभी. But there were some people who also thought this guy has potential. Someday he will achieve great stuff. And they started speaking to me as if I've already achieved great things. See, you can look at people and say, ये तो यूजलेस है. Or you can look at people and say, अरे इसके पास काफी potential है. There's a simple difference. Potential means
was actually backing you. Like
right.
आपकी story सुनकर मुझे यही लग रहा है there was a divine force which was there all the time with you, Sunil.
All
I
the
mean,
time.
hats
All the
off
time.
to you. Hats off to you.
नहीं मेरा कुछ नहीं है. I did only whatever I could do humanly. But humanly there are a lot of people who do a lot of things but still not be successful. So उसीलिए मैं completely आपके साथ agree करता हूँ कि it's the divine force at work. It's God's script. जैसा एक we see a movie but we don't see a script writer, है ना?
True.
मेरा स्टोरी भी वैसा है. You see my story but you don't see the script writer in my story. कि इतना सारा difficulties जो है I could overcome is not because of me, because वो सूत्रधारी जो है वो ऊपर बैठ के
He had better plans for
story,
you.
Yeah, so I'm grateful, God's grace, and that's why I when you said let's talk, for me यही उम्मीद जो है, ये उम्मीद है कि some listeners somewhere in your podcast who's going through a pandemic related challenge or some challenge relating to relationships or some challenge relating to finances, some challenge relating to mental peace, right? कि वो मेरा story सुने इनसे कि इतना सारा ये overcome किया है, maybe I can overcome too, maybe I have something that I can see. We don't often know कि अपने अंदर जितना ताकत है, वो शक्ति जो है, the mental capability that we have, we never know till we are really pushed. Only these difficulties reveal you. In fact, in my motivational talks, I keep sharing कि champions are never made in the stadium or in the playground, in the arena. Champions are merely exposed there. मतलब क्या है? Their strengthening and their equipping, their preparation happens in real life. The arena is merely a showcase of what they've already been made. जैसा शेफ जो है एक beautiful dish बना के अपने सामने अपने टेबल के पास लेके आता है. He didn't make it on the way. He made it in the heat. He made it in the kitchen. It's all ugly. It's all fumes, smoke. It's not very beautiful, aesthetic. But in that unpleasant circumstances or the unpleasant setting, not so camera ready setting, the dish is made and then it is beautifully presented at the table. अपना life के settings भी वैसी है. In the harsh realities of adversity जो है, अपना character बनती है, अपना mental strength increase होता है. So pandemic जो है, it didn't make people or break people. Pandemic merely exposed the people for who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So very rightly said, Sunil. In fact, मैं आपकी बात कुछ चीजों से relate भी कर पाती हूँ. जैसे कि अभी दो चीजें कहना चाहती हूँ. I recently saw a Marvel movie, okay, Black Widow करके. उसमें like in the very beginning, the mother actually tells her daughter कि pain is something, don't avoid it because pain is something that is going to make you stronger. So ये कहते हैं ना कि ये जो एक पर्टिकुलर फ्रेज है कहीं ना कहीं मेरे दिमाग में कंटिन्यूसली चलता है कि लाइक बच्चे भी जैसे कि समझो गिर जाते हैं, थोड़ी खरोच आ जाती है, we always tell them it's good, now you are becoming a big boy, it's going to make you stronger. तो आपके केस में मैं वही में रिलेट कर पा रही हूँ. लाइक so many things actually went in your life. I mean मेरे पास वर्ड्स नहीं है एक्सप्रेस करने के लिए सुनील. आई एम सो सॉरी, आई एम शॉर्ट ऑफ वर्ड्स, बट आई कैन लाइक फील कि आपने बहुत कुछ सहा है, बट स्टिल यू ओवरकेम इट एंड दैट इज समथिंग लाइक अ बिग थिंग. ये जैसे कहते हैं ना, हमारे यहाँ पे एक बहुत पॉपुलर कहावत है कि जब तक बच्चे को स्विमिंग पूल में ना ढकेलो तब तक वो स्विमिंग नहीं सीखता.
That is so true. That is so true.
आपने जैसे पैंडेमिक की बात कही, बिल्कुल सही.
कितना भी YouTube manual, YouTube videos देखो swimming के ऊपर, you'll never learn swimming until you actually get into the pool.
Actually out over there. So Sunil, आपकी ये जो जर्नी रही जहाँ पर आपने कहा कि मतलब there was a turning point in your life, उसके बाद से लेकर अब तक की जर्नी आपकी कैसी रही, उसके बारे में कुछ बता सकते हैं?
Sure. So जैसे कह रहा था ना कि it's easy in our country to take the wrong path. So मैं आपको ये कह रहा था कि during election time के हम क्या करते थे, एक 15-20 boys थे हम, very good set of friends. तो आधा लोग जाके एक political party के पास पैसे लेते कि देखो हमारा इतना बड़ा ग्रुप है, हम आपको कैंपेन करेंगे करके एक पार्टी से पैसे लेते थे. Some people would give us money, some people would give us cricket kits, some people would give us a cricket mat. Some cash or some kind of but the other group will go to the rival party and say so there were some things that I'm not very proud of that did as youngsters, and I realized, see, these are all absolutely wrong, right? There is a clear thing in my mind that I should change my ways. Just a turning point हुआ that youth camp that I went to, but that was only the starting point. It's as if I said, I'll turn and start running a different race. But race to शुरुआत हुई, but long way ahead, right?
Correct.
At that time, I was only in my polytechnic. India mein 10+3, you don't get many opportunities, which meant I had to go back to education, some shape or form. Education, without education in India, you can't thrive unless आजकल जो है बच्चे लोग startups and all that, they're getting into creative, entrepreneurial, gig economy, startup economy. आजकल start हुआ. Those days there were hardly any opportunities. So I knew that education was going to be my stepping stone for success. So I waited. The second part was I really need to rebuild my relationship with my father, because you can be all happy, pura Facebook ke jaisa, you can post all the great pictures outside, but at home when you go back, you can't make eye contact with your own father, and there's this chill in the air, there is this tension in the air, and pura conversation was going through mother or sisters. There was a lot of discomfort and pain in my own relationship. So I needed to fix that relationship with my father. And then finally, I also needed to make sure that my sisters and my brother and my parents were also starting to come out of this well of poverty. I needed to bring them all out so they can be happy. So 3-4 challenges were staring at me, even though I turned around, right? But I'm telling you, thanks be to God, over a period of next 7-8 years, I was able to do a bachelor's degree part-time. I was able to do a full-time MBA degree in Usmania, and I was able to also do a full-time master's in communications and journalism, which is where my interest was.
Remarkable.
And Namita, without any sense of modesty, I'll share with you, in the journalism program, I actually won 4 out of the 5 gold medals in the university for talking. And for a guy who couldn't even go to college, in fact, मेरे classmates बहुत मजाक उड़ाते थे. एक colleague है who's now actually a professor in an Urdu university. वो typical हैदराबाद में हैदराबादी हिंदी में ऐसा कहता है, इस जनाब को ना मैं 2 बार देखा, एक बार हॉल टिकट के वक्त देखा, एक बार गोल्ड मेडल लेते वक्त देखा मैं. I never went to college because college timings and job timings always conflicted. So I could not go to college. But again, my survival skills kicked in. And of course, grace of God, people started seeing कि बंदा काफी genuine hai, genuine problems hai, isko madad karenge. So people went out of their way to help. My friends used to photocopy notes and give it to me and stuff. So it's my success as well as my friend's success. But when I did, education was done, my work experience in the meantime, I started working in sales, advertising. So this work experience and education set me up, and my career started taking off. I was India's Acer India's first communications director to be hired in Bangalore. They could have hired anyone from Mumbai. They could have hired anyone from Delhi or any of these fancy IIM type of guys, but they found my profile to be very compelling. I was doing radio. I was doing All India Radio. There's a channel called Yuvavani English. Back in the day, that was it's as popular as any radio channels now. And I was doing radio jockeying in that place. I wrote for Encyclopedia Britannica. So my career suddenly started looking up from a professional standpoint. My dad's relationship healed. In India, I had this kabhi kushi, kabhi gham type of a moment where I had to say sorry to my dad, but I didn't know how to say it. So, you know how in India, conversations are not easy. And so I wrote a letter to my dad and mailed it to my own house.
Oh, how sweet.
I'm really sorry.
That's really sweet.
I mean, that was the only way I could have get that thing off my chest. So when my dad read that letter, he really started crying and he just hugged me. And we didn't speak any words about it because everything was said. Whatever I needed to say as apology was captured in that email. And I said, Dad, I'm really sorry. I said all these harsh things to you. Please forgive me. And then uske baad, our relationship became so beautiful. So here's another thing I want to share. In India, we leave a lot of things unresolved with our parents.
Correct.
Things that we could have said and cleared the air, we don't. We hold it back because they are older, we are younger. Just say things out. They are parents. They understand if you had a hard word you spoke, but resolve it. resolve before it is too late. So I did it, and I'm so glad God gave me a chance to get that closure. Uske baad, my dad was so proud of me. When I was receiving the medals at the Osmania University, I was just married at that time. My wife, my mom, and my dad were there at the university to see me. Family, we made it. Some people have a lot of wealth and all that, but I have this greatest pleasure of seeing my mom and dad just watch me go. Rangarajan, the former RBI governor, was the vice chancellor of Osmania at that time. He handed over those medals, and telling you, Namita, करोड़ों पैसे देने से भी इतना you will not get the joy of that moment. So these things turn around my story. I'll pause here and see if you have a reaction.
Oh, it's really beautiful, Sunil. I mean, आपने बहुत ही सही बात कही. Especially in India, when we are talking about, कहीं ना कहीं वो बोलते हैं, I don't know, maybe it's an age gap या एक generation gap, especially आज की डेट में. अभी जैसे कि आज ही तो हमारी जब बात हो रही थी कि why I really wanted you to be as a guest speaker on my podcast, ये एक actually main की like they are not able to connect with their parents. They feel that कि मतलब वो अपने पेरेंट्स की साइड को या तो समझ नहीं पा रहे या तो पेरेंट्स उन्हें समझा नहीं पा रहे, तो कहीं ना कहीं दे आर फीलिंग लाइक ईदर बीइंग टारगेटेड, फिर कहीं ना कहीं उन्हें डिप्रेशन आ जाता है, वो सुसाइडल थॉट्स आ जाते हैं. सो व्हाट यू सेड वाज लाइक एब्सोल्युटली ब्यूटीफुल एंड ऑन द पॉइंट, सुनील. मेंड द बॉन्ड्स. I mean, ये एक पर्टिकुलर मैसेज है जो आपने बहुत ही क्लियरली बताया है from the story that you told us right now, and this is going to be the one most precious message which you have passed on to me and to my viewers and audience, Sunil. Thanks a lot once again for that.
Yeah, that story is a powerful story. I'm proud of many things, but ये मौका जो मिला है मेरे को to mend that bond with my dad, which is why my wife even now teases me कि कभी खुशी कभी गम हम इतने बार भी देख के बैठ के रो पड़ता. It's hard to not be touched by that movie. So dads particularly, I want to say this to all the men who watch this show particularly. Women are very expressive and by nature, and they have a different way of connecting with their dads and their relationships. But men tend to be a lot more, ego comes in a lot of our relationships, particularly if they are older. It's a very, very complex situation, but I'll encourage you, just take the first step, break the ice. It's okay, because they are dads, they are elders, they have a different set of issues they were dealing with. You take the higher ground. You be the first person to break the ice.
Wonderfully said, Sunil. So Sunil, आप इतने amazing storyteller हैं. What do you think are the skill sets that are required to become a storyteller?
It's a great question. मेरा evolution to become a storyteller है वो organic था. I never set out to become a storyteller, but what was very unique is when I look back now, I can connect the dots. Is you should have this love to connect with other people. See, stories are always about connections. You cannot be a storyteller without having a desire to connect with people. जैसा अपना ये podcast का how it came about, Namita, is because you and I connected on LinkedIn, and you have a show that you are inspiring people, and I have a desire that I want to connect with people. So this common between this you and me in the story is you have a desire to connect with people and influence them and inspire them and educate them and entertain them. So there is this love of people. So stories are always about people. You can't have storytelling without a love of people. So that's the first thing, which I had in abundance. मुझे तो ना right from my elementary school days, every class I would stand up and say, teacher, may I go to the bathroom? Every class. क्योंकि मुझे 45 minutes of attention in a class was nightmare. And some children are like that. I only discovered that after I had kids. And you realize कि when you work with children, not everyone has the same interest, aptitude, love, attention capabilities, and so on, right? So my take was, there must be something that holds my attention. And what held my attention were stories. What held my attention was standing in front of a group and speaking. जैसे कहते हैं, they say public speaking is the number one fear people have in this world. But for me, that was my number one interest, number one love. Right from school days, I would enjoy going in front of, on stage and in front of people and sharing my thoughts and ideas. And
You
I
are a
realized,
natural storyteller.
I hope so. I think that's at least that's the belief that drives me, because, and that's why I actually wrote the book also. Nobody writes a book unless they believe they don't have a story to tell, right? So they have to have this belief that this story needs to be told, and that's when they write, or that's when just up. You have this desire to tell stories to people, or bring people who can tell stories to your audience. So you're a connector. You are somebody who would like to use your platform and bring others so that they can be benefited. So it's a similar thing. This desire for outreach, desire. So to me, and that came out very early in my conflict with electronics. My parents thought, isko polytechnic padhaenge, he'll get into a technician job, family will be set, right? Indian Railways में या कहीं government company में नौकरी मिलेगा, quarters मिलेगा, LTA, all that. In their mind, they started thinking of my career like that. I said nothing doing, because electronics, ऐसा बैठ के soldering printed circuit boards was not my idea of a career. I mean, nothing wrong. I mean, TVs are made by technicians. Your phones are made. It's a great future. People have microelectronics is a great industry, but not for me. So I could never reconcile myself doing technical hands skills with my hands kind of a job. My passion was storytelling. My passion was reading, writing, ideas, imagination. And if I did not achieve my potential, I was miserable. So from a very high paying job in sales, I was selling electronic instruments. I was traveling all over India. I was making tons of money for an 18, 19, 20-year-old. But I quit all that and went back to ground zero and started all the way in advertising, because advertising as a field allows you to work with brands, ideas, imagination. You're not selling anything. You're telling stories to your audience. I enjoyed my life. Ever since I made that move to advertising, I don't think I ever worked in my life, because everything I was doing was so interesting, so involving for me that, in fact, when I was in advertising, I was working for one top agency in Hyderabad. For about 12 days, I did not go home. My company car driver used to go to my house, bring clothes every time. We used to office mein hi so rahe the, office mein all the basic necessities were being done out of, because we were working on a big campaign for a large bank that was one of our biggest customers. After 12 days, one day my mother said, "Ye Sunday to bhi aap church ko aayenge kya? People are wondering where you have gone." Then I said, "Okay, I'm coming." And my company, I asked my boss if I could borrow the car. They let me go with the driver. I attended church and then went back to office. It's not like I went home, I slept in my house for a day. It's like for 12 days at a stretch, I was in the office, because that's how much I enjoyed working, right? So when storytelling is all about what grips you, you want to convert that story and tell others. Storytellers are very, very interesting people. And just say you go to a party, right? Where do all the people gather around? There'll be one storyteller or some guy who's got this gift of the gab or gift of storytelling. And sometimes these guys also exaggerate. They're fake there. In Hyderabad, they're called fakus, right?
Oh my God.
They take a little bit of truth and they stretch it, pura masala dal ke. It's like, but that is not true storytelling. True storytelling also has a degree of believability and credibility. So whatever I shared with you, right? Everything can be verified, right? The story I told you about my gold medals, right? You go back in time and talk to my journalism classmates, you will know that that is true. You will know that these things happen, right? So there is a degree of truthfulness that cannot be diminished in storytelling. And genuine storytelling is straight from the heart. It just comes unvarnished, uncolored, unmarinated with masalas, and straight heart-to-heart type of storytelling.
Very well said, Sunil. In fact, quite an enriching information that you have shared just now. So, Sunil, I want to ask you one more curious question. अगर आप आपके regular projects पर काम नहीं कर रहे होते हो, what is it that you do?
At work, I'm also involved in storytelling and branding and stuff, right? So I'm actually blessed. I work for TCS, right? Tata Group of companies, as you know, is one of India's biggest name. My greatest pride is because this company is a very, very value-based company. So absolutely. I get a lot of freedom in my company. Sometimes I pick and choose projects, even if they are not in my, they don't pay me for what I do. Just for example, I'm in marketing, but telling stories and inspiring people and coaching and teaching others is my passion. So they give me opportunity to do that as long as I'm doing my day job fine, right? So if my boss is happy with what I'm doing and my teams are happy, then I can freely do whatever. तो ये आप मानेंगे ना ये बात कि in the last 12 years since I've been with this company, I have trained 10,000 boys and girls, young engineers, young managers, out of my own interest, not because it's part of my job.
Oh,
I go to different cities, different locations where our people are, and I say, okay, Sunil Robert loves teaching on leadership, loves teaching on coaching, loves teaching on public speaking, loves teaching people on how to make great presentations. A topics के ऊपर मैं जाके free में मुफ्त में कर. And you know, when somebody is doing it because it's free or because he loves to do it, people pay attention because I'm not making money on that.
Absolutely.
I'm doing it because I'm teaching out of my interest. So people say कि ये अपना family को छोड़ के 3 दिन इधर आने की क्या जरूरत है? And then they'll start thinking, maybe this guy is really passionate about that topic. And that's why they pay attention. So teaching is one part. Then in New Jersey, there is a prison called Rahway Prison or East Jersey State Prison, high maximum security prison. Before COVID, I used to go and train the prisoners on leadership, on communication, so that when some of these guys are released from prison, they can get opportunities and they can be ready for opportunities. कि नहीं तो क्या होता है? These guys are so intimidated by the changes that have happened in the world. They look for an opportunity to commit another crime and go back because that's where they are very comfortable.
Right.
And they're getting free food, free thing, life is set. So they are not ready to handle. But kya hota hai na, as more and more people get into prison, more and more of our tax-paying dollars are going to take care of them. So if you keep more people out of prison, our tax dollars can be better. So there are a lot of other reasons. And plus it's a good thing to do, keeping people, giving people second chance. I mean, the reason I give everybody a second chance is because I got a second chance, right? Mera life mein agar people didn't believe in me and didn't give me second chances, mera story completely alag rehta tha. So teaching people in my company is one thing. Teaching people inside the prison is something. I love to do events with young people. My life is very exciting, Namita.
Indeed, Sunil. In fact, आपने बहुत ही अच्छा पर्सपेक्टिव भी बताया है. Like not just, especially जो आपने प्रिजन वाली वो जो बात बताई जहाँ पर आप सोशल वर्क कर रहे हो एक्चुअली, आपने बहुत ही अच्छा पर्सपेक्टिव बताया है कि like you are sharing your thoughts, you are inspiring someone to lead a good life और indirectly वो आपको कैसे impact करता है टैक्स के माध्यम से. इनफैक्ट मेरे दिमाग में एक और एक चीज आ रही है, like whenever we are donating anything to an NGO, many people, especially I think in India probably, I do not know about like abroad also, but many people say कि नहीं अगर तुमने social work किया है so you don't really need to take a receipt of it. मतलब तुमने सोशल वर्क किया है, यू शुड जस्ट गो अहेड एंड यू नो डू इट अपफ्रंट. पर मेरा ये कहना है कि नो, यू शुड हैव अ रिसीट इन प्लेस बिकॉज योर हार्ड अर्न्ड मनी शुड गो टू द राइट प्लेस एंड दैट लाइक दैट रिसीट विल हेल्प यू कि आपको उसमें से टैक्स बचाने में भी हेल्प करेगा एंड द सेव्ड अमाउंट यू कैन अगेन यूज टू डू ए सोशल सर्विस. तो आपने जो पर्सपेक्टिव कहा है बहुत ही अच्छा पर्सपेक्टिव कहा है सुनील, थैंक्स फॉर दैट. सो सुनील, अभी जैसे कि हमने कोविड के बारे में बात की, अबाउट पैंडेमिक. So did pandemic impact your life? Was it positive? Was it negative?
It was very depressing for me because जैसे आप देख रहे हैं, I'm a very people-oriented person. I enjoy being with people. I enjoy traveling. So April 2020 से अब तक literally coming close to less than 2 years, I've not boarded a flight. That's the longest I've ever not traveled by plane. But by road, we just could not, as soon as things started improving, we started traveling. So it was very frustrating for me and my family. My wife also enjoys travel. My boys also, we just put them in the car and we go. So travel was one affected part, but that's a small price to pay to be safe. Hai na? I mean, my interest, my things can take a backseat. When the whole world is in trouble, I should be responsible, right? So for 1 year, I was just down, putting my head down and saying, what can I learn out of this? What can we all learn as a family? So I always treat adversity as an opportunity. Every setback is an opportunity. Even when you're having a bad day, it tells you that you're not perfect. The world around is not perfect. It's time to reset. It's time to reflect. And so I take that opportunity very seriously. So, दो तीन चीज किया मैंने. In the pandemic, I worked really hard on my fitness. In the pandemic, I acquired another coaching certification. Abhi kya hai, as I'm coming into my senior years in my work, I want to be known as a coach, not just as a doer, achiever, but as a coach. How do you help others? So International Coach Federation ka ek certification maine acquire kiya hai. All that in the last 1 year. So in every adversity, you can make the best out of it and see what can be beneficial, not just for you, but for others. I want to share something. I want to be known not just as an achiever, but as somebody who got the best of all the situations that life threw at you. Jaisa there's a saying in kahavat hai Hindi mein, agar life throws nimbu at you, you make nimbu pani. Right. So you do whatever life dishes out for you. Good things, bad things, ugly things. You just take as whatever throws at you. In fact, I was 19 years old when I first volunteered in a suicide prevention center.
Oh.
Why? Okay. Because prior to that, 2-3 years prior to that, I had myself almost on the verge of committing suicide. So you have to have all your experiences to be converted into a blessing for somebody. Otherwise, you're just accumulating experiences. If they don't benefit anybody, they are just that, experiences for you. Okay, great, good thing. What about how will it benefit others? In fact, I want to share, even in my marathon experiences, I enjoy running marathons, some of the toughest things. But there are millions of people who run marathons. But my story is, I run marathons to prove that you can do anything at any stage in life. And I want to use that as an example to tell others, not to put on Facebook and feel good ki shabash beta, acha kaam kiya. That's only short-lived. It lives there for 24 hours. 24 hours ke baad, nobody cares about your post. Na? They all move on. So it's not about that 24 hours of feel good. It's about ki agar Sunil at this age can start running marathons and do stuff, yeah, I have no excuse. I can't sit on the sofa and say ki life chill hai, right? So I want to encourage people to say, take responsibility for your health, fitness, live life on your terms.
Absolutely, Sunil. So Sunil, do you think you are successful already in your life? If not, what are your future goals?
Great question. See, 3 months ago, July 18th, we were involved in a car accident. Oh. My wife and a 9-year-old. We were going on our own path at an intersection, green light tha, we were going, and suddenly out of the right-hand side, one young driver came and hit us.
Oh my God.
That day, one of the 2-3 things could have happened. Either my wife would have died, or I could have died, or my younger son was in the back seat. But thanks be to God, none of us happened. Mera right thumb fracture hua hai, but just recently the bandage was removed, the cast was removed, which meant July 18th could have been the last day of my life.
Yeah.
And so if you measure my life up till July 18th, from where I started, I was successful. You see, life, you have to measure your success by not how far you come, but how far you come from where you started.
Exactly.
Because where you started matters to define how far you've come. See, some people are born into a wealthy family. Their starting point is different. Some people are born into a middle class family. Their starting point is different. For me, somebody like me who had to actually start from real ground zero, my starting point was different. So from where I started, yes, this immigrant journey, living in UK, living in USA, having a decent job, having a decent leadership position, all that adds to success by some standards. But for me, what matters, how do I define success is कि जो God-given talents है. If let's say God gave me 5 talents of public speaking, of relationships, of communication, of writing, some of these gifts and talents, did I do justice to those gifts and talents, and did I make them benefit for somebody? If that is the yardstick, if that is the measuring tape, then I'll let the world decide whether I was successful or not. 2 किताबें लिखा है मैंने, reasonably did well. I took good care of my body, God-given body. See, many people think of success as earning money, but they don't think of success as all the 60, 70, 80 years of life. Did you take care of your body? See, you can have 2 cars, you can have 2 houses, you can have multiple crores in your bank, but you can only have one body.
Absolutely.
So if you don't take care of your body, then you are not successful. कि क्या फायदा है? You have crores of rupees in your bank account, but कि ये नहीं खा सकता है, वो नहीं खा सकता है. You have this problem, that health problem. So you have to take good care of your body when you are able to. Of course, there are times when things happen, like my accident, which is beyond your control. Let's say I had an injury and for the rest of my life I could not do something. It's not because I did something wrong or I made a certain wrong choice. It's some misfortune hit me and it happened. So I understand when things happen to people, but you have to take care of your body, you have to take care of your mind, and you have to take care of all the gifts God has given you. That is success. And by that yardstick, I think I did reasonably well.
Wonderful, Sunil. So Sunil, before we actually log off, मैं आपको एक last question पूछना चाहती हूँ. Can you please share a special message to my viewers, to my audience, and in fact, अगर कोई aspiring entrepreneurs है, शायद उनके लिए भी.
There's only one piece of advice that has 3 letters in it that I'd like to give. अगर हमारे culture में when people die, they write something on their tomb, right? If I want to write some 3 words on my tomb, it'll be never give up. If I want people to look at my story and say कि बंदा कोशिश किया है, he never gave up. Banda never gave up fighting. See, that's true in any situation. That was true 30 years ago when I was a teenager. That is true just after this accident also. Whatever I am doing, I'll never give up. You should never give up. If you're going through some mental disturbance, some relationships are in a difficult situation. Husband, wife, parent, child, father, son, whatever, right? So if that relationship is in a good, tight situation, never give up. Don't give up. आजकल क्या है ना, people don't have patience. People don't have the energy to work through difficult times. They're saying, चलो यार, block कर देंगे इसको. You can't block people. You can block their phone contact, but you can't. They occupy a place in your heart and they eat away from inside till you actually resolve that. You can't ignore. हैदराबाद में बोल रहे बहुत क्या रे बहुत अनजान मार रहा है. अनजाना, अनजाना. You can't अनजान मारो people. You have to. They are people in your life. You cannot anjan maro them. So work through things, work through relationships. Something is you're frustrated because a gift of yours is not being utilized. Never give up. Work through it. So that and particularly to young people, time is on your side. You should not be disturbed by short-term disappointments, but set yourself for long-term marathon type mindset. You should say, my life is long runway. I'll take my time. Chota sa setbacks, bumps on the road aayenge, but still I will never give up. So those are my 3 phrase for you, Namita. Never give up.
So beautifully passed on, Sunil. I mean, the conversation that we had today is like one of the enriching and the enlightening ones. बहुत मजा आया आपकी बातें सुनकर, especially आपने जो fascinating stories बताई. They have been truly like, it has touched my heart. And I'm sure it will touch many people's heart. And on that note, again, Sunil, I want to thank you for your time and your efforts today. इतना time difference होने के बाद भी आपने you made your time to come to my podcast. I'm truly humbled.
The pleasure is mine. Congratulations on your podcast. I hope many lives will be touched through this and many other episodes you meet. And may you meet wonderful people and many people be blessed by your podcast. God bless, Namita.
Thanks a lot, Sunil. Take care and let's stay in touch.